Guys, in the last session, we completed our discussion related to what is JAXB API and what is Jackson API. So can you tell me what is the JAXB API and what is the Jackson API? JAXB API is used to convert Java object to XML. What about Jackson? To convert Java object to JSON and JSON to Java object. So Jackson API to convert Java to JSON, JSON to Java. JAXB API to convert Java to XML, XML to Java. Perfect. So with this, we covered the basic part that is related to start our REST API development. So we have learned so far what is distributed application. So can you tell me what is a distributed application? If one application is communicating with another application, then that is called as distributed application. What are the technologies available to develop them? Corba, RMI, EJB, like that. There are several technologies available to develop our distributed application. Got it? Next one, REST architecture. So in the REST we have provider and consumer. So what is provider and what is consumer? Provider means the application which is providing the services to other application is called as provider. Then what is consumer? The application which is accessing the services from other applications is called as consumer. Now, HTTP protocol. What is the HTTP protocol? That is acting as a mediator between consumer and provider, right? Request, response, methods, status codes. What are the methods available? What are the methods available? HTTP get method, post method, put method, delete method. When to go for get method? If you want to access the data from the server, then we will go for get method. When to go for post method? To send the data to the server, we will go for post method. What about put method? To update the data in the server, we will go for put method. What about the delete method? If you want to delete a record, then we will go for delete method. What are the status codes available? What are the status codes available? 200, 300, 400, 500. What is the meaning of 400? Client error. What about 500? Server error. 200? Success. Right. What is XML? Why we are going for XML? What is XML? Why we need to go for XML? XML will represent the data in the form of tag format. XML will represent the data in the tag format. Okay. XML is platform independent and language independent. So to convert Java to XML, XML to Java, we will go for JAXB API. In the JAXB API, we are going to write binding classes. What is the meaning of binding classes in the JAXB? What is the meaning of a binding class in the JAXB? The class which represents XML structure is called as binding class. Then we done marshalling. What is the marshalling? The process of converting Java object to XML is called as marshalling. Then what about unmarshalling? What about unmarshalling? The process of converting XML back to Java object is called as unmarshalling. Okay. Then currently XML is having demand in the market. Does not have demand in the market? No. Currently which one? JSON. What is the JSON? JavaScript object notation. It will represent the data in the form of key value. Key is a string, value can be any type. To convert Java object to JSON, JSON to Java object, what is required? Jackson API is required. To convert Java object to JSON, JSON to Java object, we will go for Jackson API. Jackson API, is it part of Java or it is a third-party API? It is the third-party API. There is another API available which is called JSON API. Perfect. So we covered the basic part that is related to our RESTful services development. Now, today we need to understand provider development. Okay. Let us start our discussion related to provider development. Who is a provider? The application which is providing services to other application is called as provider. The application which is providing services to other applications is called as provider. Provider is also called as REST API. Provider is also called as a REST API. So now I need to develop one REST API. When you send a request for the REST API, it will give the response for you. UI will be available or UI will not be available. UI will be available or UI will not be available. UI will not be available. Okay. Steps to develop the provider. Now, first step, create Spring Starter project. Nothing but create Spring Boot application with below dependencies. In order to develop a provider, create one boot application with below dependencies. We need only web starter, guys. In order to develop a REST API, you just need only web starter. It is providing all the dependencies that are required to develop our provider. Create boot application with the dependencies like web starter. Then second one, create REST controller class. We already seen in the WebMVC what is a controller. Controller will return view pages. Now I want to go for B2B communication. So I need to develop REST controller class. Create REST controller class using @REST controller annotation. So in order to represent our Java class as a REST controller, we are going to use one annotation called @REST controller annotation. Write the required methods and map them to HTTP protocol methods. Write the required methods and map them to URL plus HTTP protocol methods. Create boot application with below dependencies. We need only one dependency, that is called web starter. Then create REST controller class using @REST controller annotation. Write the required methods and map them to URL plus HTTP protocol methods. Then fourth step, run the application and test it using Postman. Whatever the REST API we are developing, that REST API will not contain UI. That REST API will not contain UI. That REST API we need to test by using a software called Postman. Right. Read these steps. We are understanding provider development. What is called provider? The application which is providing services to other applications is called as provider. Provider is also called as REST API. Create boot application with below dependencies. What dependency required? Web starter. In that application, if you want to perform B2B communication, then you need to create REST controller. How to represent Java class as a REST controller? By using REST controller annotation. So in that REST controller, you can write the required method and you can map that method to particular URL plus HTTP protocol methods. Run the application and test that application using Postman. Fine. Let me start the development. Guys, screen size, it is already full. I can't maximize that. This is the max size that I can share. Because of the projector, the screen size will come like this. If I remove the projector, it will be big. With the projector, screen size will be like this only. I can't maximize more than this. Yeah, let me go to Spring Boot workspace. Now I want to develop our first REST API application. I want to develop our first REST API application, right? Guys, how many of you got the messages for the test from the company? One person? Only one person got the message? How many of you got the message from the company for the interview? You also got for interview? You got a call from the company. Did they ask to come for interview? In Zoom call. Okay. So today or tomorrow, I will check with the HR. How many people got selected? You people need to go for face-to-face interview for the company. Today night or tomorrow, I will confirm that. Okay, fine. Right. Now, let me create one REST application, guys. First REST application I want to develop. So file, new, Spring Starter project. Let me take the project name as 24 REST API. Maven build tool, packaging as a jar, Java version 11. Next, what is the dependency I need? Web dependency. So if you want, you can take DevTools. What is the purpose of DevTools? What is the purpose of DevTools? If you want to restart the server, then we will go for DevTools dependency. Click on next, click on finish. Now see here, my REST API is getting created. My REST API getting created. In that I selected Web Starter and DevTools. Go to pom.xml, boot version, Web Starter I'm taking, DevTools I'm taking. That's it. Test dependency that is coming by default. Okay. Now go to start class. What is there in the start class? It's normal. It's normal. @Spring Boot application annotation is available. Public static void main Spring application.run method. Okay. Now I want to create one REST controller in our project. New class. So let me go for @REST. There is a package. Now I'm taking this as message controller, message REST controller. Class name can be anything. I'm giving the class name as message REST controller. As of now, it is a normal Java class. I want to make this class as a REST controller. For that, I'm using a annotation called @REST controller. Controller plus response body is equal to REST controller. Inside this REST controller, I can write a method like this: public string get welcome message. Public string get welcome message. Now you can write string message is equal to welcome to REST API. Welcome to REST API return message. Okay, I created one Java class. That Java class I'm representing as a REST controller. That Java class I'm writing one method. That method is returning some message. Now this method is a normal Java method. This method we need to map to HTTP protocol method. What logic is available in this method? What this method is doing, guys? What this method is doing? It is simply giving a message. That means client will get the message. So this method should be mapped to get request. How to map this method to get request? By using get mapping. By using get mapping, here I am giving /welcome. That's it. This is called our REST API. This is called our REST API. I created a class. That class I am representing as a REST controller. In that class, I am writing one method. That method is returning string. That method is mapped to get request with /welcome URL pattern. So once you have created the project, create the class, write the method, map that method to URL and map that method to HTTP protocol. With this, our REST API is ready. With this, our REST API is ready. Do I need to create any view page? Do I need to configure view resolver? No. Why? B2B communication. One application will send a request. It will process that request. It will send the response to the browser or response to the client. Once this application is ready, let's go here and run this application. Let's go here and run this application. Run as boot application. Run as boot application. Application started. Embedded server available. Apache Tomcat. Port number 8080. Clear the console. Application is running. What is the URL pattern? Localhost colon 8080/welcome. As it is a get request method, I'm able to send the request from the browser and I'm able to access that method. I'm getting the response. Okay. But actually in the real time, in order to test the REST APIs, we will use one tool called Postman. Now let us see how to download the Postman and how to send the request from the Postman. Go to browser and here you can type download Postman for Windows. Download Postman for Windows. So when you click on this, you can see one option, download Postman for Windows 64-bit operating system. Click on Windows 64-bit. Yes, Postman tool is getting downloaded. Why we need this Postman, guys? What is the purpose of this Postman? It is used to test the REST API because UI will not be available. So to test the REST API, we need Postman. Postman is a software or tool which is used to test REST API functionality. Okay, my Postman is downloaded. You can double click on this. Next, finish. You can install the Postman. All right, let me install the Postman. Let me install the Postman. Right, Postman tool got installed. In this Postman, you can see the home page like this. It will ask you to create the account. Without account also, you can use the Postman. Now you see, I have my REST controller. There is a method which is mapped to get request. How to understand that it is mapped to get request? Get mapping. It is having the URL pattern as a /welcome. Go to Postman. What type of request you want to send, you select it. Do you want to send get or post or put or patch or delete? So method is binded to get request. Select it. What is your URL? You type that URL. Localhost colon 8080/welcome. Click on send. When I send that request, can you see? Am I getting the response? Welcome to REST API. What is the status I got? 200. What is the meaning of 200? Success. That means I'm able to send the request. That request got processed successfully and I got the response from the server. I got the response from the REST API with the status code as 200. That means it is okay. So here similarly, I can write one more method. Public string get greet message. Okay. Here simply I can return a message as good evening. String get greet message, return good evening. Okay. I want to map this method to another URL pattern. This is also get request method. I want to map this method to another URL pattern. Okay. Take this. Let me give here /greet. Let me give here /greet. Two methods are available. Both are binded to get request and URL pattern /welcome and /greet. Any ambiguity in the URL? Is there any ambiguity in the URL? No ambiguity in the URL. Now run the application. Run this. Clear the console. Go to browser, send the request. Now, I send the request for /welcome method. I got welcome to REST API. Suppose if I send the request to greet, click on send. Now what happened? What I'm getting as a response now? Good evening. What is the status? 200 is okay. I'm getting the successful response, right? So here you select get request localhost colon 8080/greet. I got the response as good evening 200. Okay, fine. So we are able to write get request method. Guys, if you observe, my method is returning any status code or my method is not returning any status code. Is my method returning any status code or my method not returning any status code? My method is not returning any status code. Then how I am getting the status code in the Postman? Internally, dispatcher servlet will prepare the response, will send to the client. Who is the client for my API now? Postman is a client. Postman is sending the request to my REST API. My REST API processing that request and my REST API sending response to the client. So in the response body available, response headers available. Okay, response headers I'm getting, response body also I'm getting, status code also I'm getting. 200 I'm getting as a status code. That is okay. Fine. In future, I may write another method, public string store message, or I will write a method save message. Some method save message. Here I will write the logic to save the message, and finally I will return saved successfully. Okay, message is saved successfully. Now, what is the purpose of this method? What is the purpose of this method? It is used to take the message and save that message. So should I bind this to get request or I should bind this to post request? Come on, man. What is the purpose of this method? So take the data from the client and store that data into some database table. So that logic I will write later. Logic to save the message. Now here I will map this method to post request by using post mapping. By using post mapping, message is saved successfully. So now let me run this application. So how many methods are there in my REST controller? Come on, guys. How many methods are there in my REST controller? There are 3 methods available in my REST controller. What are those 3 methods? One is the post request method. 2 are the get request methods. Go to browser. Can I do here localhost colon 8080/welcome, localhost colon 8080/welcome. Welcome is a URL pattern of this method. It is binded to which request, guys? Welcome method is binded to which request? Get request. Can I send a get request from the browser? Yes or no? Am I able to send it? Yes, I'm getting the response. Now, I am having another method called greet method. Am I able to send get request for the greet method? From where I am sending? From browser only. I'm sending the request for the greet method and I got the response. Okay. Next one, /message available. It is binded to which request? It is binded to which request? Post request. Now go to the browser localhost colon 8080/message. Okay. Am I able to send the request? What is the response I'm getting? Method not allowed. What is the status code? 405. So this is 4xx category. Is it a server problem or it is a client problem? It is client problem. So what is the problem here? Can you read it? Method not allowed. Boss, here I am sending request from the browser. Whenever I send request from the browser, by default, browser will consider that as a GET request. So it is considering that as a GET request. But in my controller, message URL pattern belongs to GET request method or POST request method. Is it binded to GET request method or it is binded to POST request method? POST request method. But what request we are sending from the browser? Come on. I am sending GET request from the browser for the URL, but in the controller, method is binded to POST request. Then what status code I am getting? 405. So request method GET not supported. Boss, whatever the method you are trying to access, that is GET request method, that is POST request method, but you are sending a GET request. I cannot process your request. So is it server problem or it is client problem? Client is sending invalid request, incorrect request. Okay. Now I want to test that POST request method is working as expected or not. How to test this POST request method now? Can I test this method from the browser? Come on, guys. Why I cannot test this method from the browser? This method is binded to POST request. From the browser, which request is going? GET request. So what is the option to test this method now? What is the option to test this method now? To test this method, the option is POST request. I need to go for POST request. Postman, go here. Type. What is the request type now? POST. What is the URL? /message. It is belongs to POST request. Click on send. Now what happened? Message saved successfully. What is the status code I'm getting? 200. Okay. Who is sending that status code? Dispatcher servlet sending that status code. But here I have a requirement. By default, status code coming as 200. But I want to send the status code as 201, record created. So I will insert the record into database. Whenever the record is inserted to database, I want to send the status as record created, not as 200. I want to send 201 as the status code. Are you able to follow me? Whenever you write the method, whenever you return some message, blindly dispatcher servlet is sending 200 as a status code. For GET request, 200 is okay, fine. But for POST request, I want to return status code as 201. Are you guys getting my point? How to return custom status code from the REST API method? In this scenario, in my REST controller, am I returning the status code, or it is deciding by the dispatcher servlet? It is deciding by the dispatcher servlet. Okay, what is the status code I'm getting by default? 200. What is the meaning of 200? Success. But for the POST request method, I don't want to go for 200. I want to go for 201. I want to go for 201. How to return custom status code? Now let us see. I will make some changes in this method, guys. Instead of returning the string, I'm going to return one object called response entity. What is my method return type I'm taking now? Response entity. Earlier, what was the return type? String. When I go for the string return type, it is returning 200 as a status code. Now I don't want 200, I want 201. I want to customize status code of my REST API. When you want to customize that status code, we need to go for response entity. So this is the body that I want to send. This is my response body. I want to send this message in the response body as a payload. Now here, to return the status on my own, I am going to create return new response entity. Return new response entity body. What is the body? Response body. And next one is status code. What is the status code you want to return? HTTP status dot created. HTTP status dot created. When you use status dot created, created means what is the status code? 201. So you can write the logic. You can write the logic here to insert that. If you don't want your own status code, you can simply write like this. Dispatcher servlet will take 200, will return that. If you want to customize the status code, this is the approach. I'm taking my method return type as response entity. So this is the body I want to send. Here I will write some logic in future. I will take the data from the client. I will insert that record and I will return some response along with my status code. So if you want to customize the status code, then you need to go for response entity string. That means I want to send response body as a string. That means one message I want to send as a response. Return new response entity, response body. What body you want to send in the response? What data you want to send in the response body, comma, status dot created. What is the meaning of status dot created? 201 status code. Okay. Are you able to understand the difference between previous method and current method? What is the difference between previous method and current method? What is the difference between previous method and current method? Previous method has returned 200 as a status code, but this method will return 201 as a status code. Okay, good. Clear the console. Run our application. Run our application. Perfect. Now go to this post request message. Click on send. Now I got the response. Message is saved successfully. What is the status code I'm getting now? 201 created. Earlier I got 200. Now I am getting 201. Okay. Generally, for the get request methods, REST API will return 200 as a status code. For the post request method, it will return 201 as a status code. If I am taking response entity, here I am deciding what data should go in the response body and what status code should go to the client. That is deciding by me. Like this, you can write your method with the response entity. Similarly, can I take this method also with the response entity? Yes or no? Yes. What is the return type I need? What is the return type I need? Response entity. What is the body data? String data. Now I got the message. What I am going to return? Return new response entity of string body. What is the body? Message. What is the status code? Whatever you want. HTTP status dot okay. What is the meaning of status dot okay? 200. So if you want to return 200 status code, either you can write like this directly, method is returning string, or else you can return response entity also. Just observe these three methods now. For one method, I'm taking direct string as a return type. For the remaining two methods, I'm taking response entity. So tell me, when we need to take response entity as our method return type? When we need to take response entity as our method return type? Come on. When you want to send custom response code, then we are going to take response entity as a return type. So do you guys have any questions on this REST controller? What is @REST controller? It is used to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. It is the combination of controller plus response body. What is the purpose of @post mapping? What is the purpose of @post mapping? It is used to map our method to post request. What is the purpose of response entity? It is used to customize the response body and status code for the client. What is a get mapping? What is a get mapping? Come on. Get mapping is used to map our method to get request. Okay. So whatever you are returning from your method, that will become direct to payload in the response. Whatever you are returning, that will become a payload in the response. Are you guys clear? Any questions, anyone? Creating our first REST API. Creating our first REST API. Very simple. How we are testing this REST API? How we are testing this REST API? Why not from browser? Browser will support only for GET request. But my REST API contain POST request method also. To send the POST request, either we need to have a form or you need to go for the postman. Do I have a form in my application? Why not forms? Why forms not available? It is not a web application. It is a REST API. What is the purpose of REST API? B2B communication. REST APIs are mainly used for B2B communication. Are you clear? Okay. Now, let me go for second REST API development. Let me go for second REST API development. In the second REST API development, I want to deal with user data. I want to send user data to the REST API. I want to get user data from the REST API. Okay, fine, good. Let me create my second application. File, new. Process is going to be different or process will be same? Process will be different or process will be same? Process will be same. Okay. File, new, starter project. Observe carefully. I'm going for 25 REST API. Okay, 25 user REST API. 25 user REST API. Click on next. Web starter, then Lombok, then DevTools. I'm going for web starter, I'm going for Lombok, and I'm going for DevTools. I'm not using any database here. I will use one map. Instead of database, I will go for simple map. What is the purpose of a map? What is the purpose of map in the Java? To store the data in the form of key and value. So first I want to teach you the main concept of the REST API. Later point of time, I will use the database also to perform the CRUD operation. Forget about the database now. I need some storage. I will use a map to store the data to get the data. Right. I'm creating my REST API, web starter, Lombok, DevTools. Click on next, click on finish. Yes, REST API created. Go to dependencies. What are the dependencies I have added? Web starter. Next one, DevTools. Third one, Lombok. Okay. Now here guys, in this REST API, I will create one binding class. What is the purpose of binding? What is the purpose of binding? To map the data. I'm taking one class called binding with a name called user. I'm creating one class with a name called user. Private integer ID, private string name, private string email. ID, name and email I'm taking. I want setters and getters. Come on. How to take setters and getters? At the rate of data. At the rate of data. So I'm getting setter methods and getter methods for the variable. Okay. Now let me create one class with a name called user REST controller. In.ashokid.rest. The class name I'm taking as user REST controller. It is a normal Java class. How to make this class as a REST controller? Come on guys. By using @REST controller annotation. I'm making this class as a REST controller. Perfect. I need one map to store the data. Private map java.util. Key is my integer. Value is user object data map is equal to new hash map. What is a hash map? What is a hash map? Implementation class for the map interface. Map is a interface which is having several implementation classes. In that, hash map is one of the implementation class. What is the purpose of this map? To store the data and to get the data. Instead of a database, I'm going for map. In the coming classes, I will use the database also, because if I use a database, it will become lengthy. You cannot concentrate on the REST API concept. Okay. Now I am going for one method, public string add user. To add the user, I need user data. I'm expecting user data. Okay guys, public string add user. I'm taking user object as a parameter. I am having map data map dot put user dot get id comma user. Can you tell me what I am doing now? Can you tell me what I'm doing now? I'm take 1 minute. Here I will take response entity as a parameter and I will take string. What is the purpose of response entity? Customized response. Okay. Add user method. What is the parameter for the user? What is the parameter for the user? User object. What is the logic in the method? What is the logic in the method? Data map dot to put key comma value. What is the meaning of put method? What is the meaning of put method? To store the data into map in the form of key and value. After that, I am going to return new response entity. Return new response entity. Body. What is the body and what is the status code? Body user saved. What is the status code? HTTP status dot created. Status dot created. Now tell me, what is the purpose of this method? Is it used to get the data or it is used to save the user? So now I should bind this to get or post or put or delete. Come on. What are the methods we have? Get available, post available, put available, delete available. Now apply your common sense and tell me what is the logic in the method. It is used to save the user. So it is taking the data from the client and it will save the user. So should I use get mapping? Why not get mapping? It is not for getting the data. It is used for storing the data. Remember, if any method is responsible to insert the record or create the record, you need to map it to post method. How to map it to post method? Come on guys. @post mapping. URL I'm giving as user. URL I'm giving as user. Are you able to follow me? Okay, very good. So now I am having post request method which will take user data and which will add the user data into the map, and it is going to return success message with the status code as 201. Whatever the user is coming, let me print that user data on the console. Let me print that user data on the console. Come on guys. I'm printing that user data on the console to understand client is sending the data correctly or not. Client is sending the data correctly or not. Okay. Now my application is ready guys. I created one project. I added web starter. I added DevTools. I created one binding class by using Lombok. I'm generating setters and getters. And I created one REST controller. What is the purpose of this REST controller? Purpose of REST controller to handle the request and response. It is making our application as a distributed application. What is this map? What is the purpose of the map? It is used to store the data in the form of key and value. And I have a method. What is the purpose of this method? What is the purpose of this method? Store the data into map and send the response. So is it sending 200 or 201? 201. How come we are sending 201? Response entity. Okay. Who will call this method? Client application, right? Before giving my API for the client, I want to test this method is working as expected or not. How to test this method? By using Postman. What this method is expecting? User object. Can I send object from the Postman? What is the method parameter, guys? So that means if I want to test this method, I need to pass user data, user object. So now, does the Postman know that my API is a Java API, or is it a .NET API, or is it a Python API? Postman don't know what technology you used. Postman knows only REST API. That can be developed by using Java, that can be developed by using .NET, that can be developed by using Python. Now, does Postman know about Java object? Does Postman know about Java object, or Postman don't know about Java object? Postman don't know about the Java object. But what my method is expecting? Java object. Are you guys able to follow me? Now, from the Postman, I want to test this method. This method is expecting user object. Okay, remember, whenever our method is expecting a object, Postman will not send the object. Postman will send the data in the JSON format. What will happen, guys? Postman will send the data in the JSON format. Can we convert JSON data to Java object? Which API is available? Jackson API. But in the Spring Boot, do I need to convert that? Do I need to convert that? Why? Dispatcher Servlet will take care of that. From the Postman, you send JSON data to the REST API. JSON data will be converted to Java object. Java object will be passed to this method. Who will be calling this method? Client will call this method. Dispatcher Servlet will call this method. Client will send a request, man. Who is a front controller? Who will call our controller method? Dispatcher Servlet. Here, Dispatcher Servlet will use converter, will use a Jackson API, will convert JSON data to Java object, will give that object to our method and will call our method. Come on. So conversion programmer will do or Spring Boot will do. Client application will send the JSON data through Postman. So that the JSON data will come to Dispatcher Servlet. It will convert that JSON data to Java object, will call our method. Are you guys getting my point? Now, see here. Run this project. Debug as Java application. I'm running this project in the debug mode, guys. Debug as boot application. I'm running this project in the debug mode. I'm keeping a breakpoint here. Now go to Postman. What is the URL pattern? Localhost : user 8080/user. Headers. Am I setting any header? No. Body. Is there any data in the body? Am I sending any data in the body? No. I'm not sending any data in the body. Enable breakpoint. Now click on send. Request sent to this method or not? Request sent to the method or not? Which request I have sent? Which request I have sent? Post request. To which URL? /user. I have a method which is binded to post request, which is having user as a URL pattern. Who identified that this method should be called? Handler mapper. What is handler mapper? To identify which method should be handled by which method, which request should be handled by which class and which method. Handler mapper identified and gave to dispatcher servlet. Then what the dispatcher servlet is doing? What the dispatch servlet is doing? Calling that method. Method is expecting parameter. What parameter? User. Client is sending any data. Client is not sending any data. Now what is there in the user? What is there in the user? Null value. So any data available or data not available? Data not available. Why not available? Client is not sending any data in the request. When a client is not sending any data in the request, dispatcher servlet created one empty object. Default values are null values. It passed that empty object for our method. So now here method is expecting user data. Method is expecting user data. Client is sending that data or client is not sending that data. Client is not sending that data. Can I create one Java object user is equal to new user? Can I send in the body? No. Why no? Postman don't know what is the new keyword. New is a Java syntax. Okay. In the Postman, we need to send JSON data. We need to send the JSON data. How JSON data will be available? Flower braces, key, colon, value. Okay. What should be the key? Binding class. What is the key here? ID. So keep it here. ID. Value some 201. What is the next key available? Name is available. Give the name. Now key, name, value, string, Ashok, double quotes. For number, double quotes are not required. For the string, double quotes are required. Next go for email. Now colon. Email is also group of characters. So I need to go for double quotes. ashok@gmail.com. If you observe here, whatever the data you want to send to the REST API, you need to send that data in the JSON format, guys. Whatever the data you want to send, you need to send that data in the JSON format. Your JSON keys should match with binding class variables. Then only it will convert your JSON to Java object. Are you guys clear? Fine. See here, post request, body. What is the body? Raw data with JSON. And I am giving the JSON data. The moment I have given JSON data, one header is added. Hidden content type. What is the content type it is selecting now? These all are the headers which are sending in the request. Am I adding the headers? Postman generating the header. Postman generating the header. Now see, this is my request URL. These are my request headers. This is my request body. Can I call this is a payload? Can I call this is a payload? What is the meaning of payload? What is the meaning of payload? Data that we are sending from one application to another application. Today, provider is available. I want to test my provider functionality. There is a post request method available. I want to send the request from the postman. My method is expecting user data. So my application is a Java application. Okay, but postman don't know Java. Postman knows JSON or XML. So as a client, I want to test it. I'm sending a post request with a body raw data JSON format. I have entered my JSON data. Okay, let me run my application in the debug mode. Now send the post request. Send the post request. Okay, I have entered the data in the body, click on send. Okay, request came to my method. User data, data is coming or data is not coming? What is the object contains now? All the default value. What is the meaning of default value? Empty object is created. So is it taking that JSON data? Is it storing into object? No, no. It is not taking the data and not storing in the object. The reason is we need to tell from where the data is coming for the object. My method is expecting object. From where the data is coming? From the client in the request body. So to tell that, I need to use one annotation that is called @request body. What is the annotation I'm using? @request body. What is the purpose of request body annotation? What is the purpose of request body annotation? We are telling to the REST controller, hey, user object you need. For this object, data will come in the request body. Take the data from the request body and store into this object. That is the meaning of that. Are you clear with my point? Yes. Now, let me run this project once again. Okay. Clear the console. Now, go to this, click on send. I sent a request. Now check the user object. User object is having the data. Now tell me, from the postman, how I am sending the data? Am I sending object or I am sending JSON? But method is taking what? Object. That means conversion happened or not happened? Who is doing that conversion? Am I doing that? Or Spring Boot is doing that? Spring Boot converted JSON data to Java object using Jackson API. So now, if I don't teach Jackson, then you will get confused. Sir, you are sending JSON data, but here we are getting the object. How that JSON is converted to object? Do I need to explain that now? Already we learned Jackson, object mapper, write value, read value. When we send a request with JSON data in the body, in the Spring Boot, that JSON data converted to Java object. That Java object coming as a parameter for the method. Now F6. Am I able to get the user data? From where this user data is coming? From the postman in the request body. That JSON data converted to Java object. Who is doing that conversion? Am I doing that conversion or it is taken care by Spring Boot? It is taken care by Spring Boot. Are you guys clear? Now, I'm able to develop post request method. What is the purpose of a post request method? What is the purpose of post request method? It is used to store the data. It is used to store the data. Are you clear? Good. Can we send one more request? Yes, ID 202 Ashok John @gmail.com. John@gmail.com. Click on send. When I click on send, what is happening? Request is coming to this method. What object it is expecting? John data is coming or not? So from the postman, what data I am sending? JSON data. That JSON data converted to Java object and sending to my method as a parameter. F6. John object I got. Earlier I got the Ashok object. Now I got the John object. It is storing to the map. In the map, how many records available in the map? 201 is available. Map size is what? 2. That means 2 entries available in the map. Ashok record available. John record also available in the map. F8. Go to the postman. Now you can see in the postman, what is the response I got? User saved. What is the status code? 201. How come 201 is coming? Why not 200? Yes, I'm taking response entity. I'm taking response entity. Are you clear with this method? So now in the Spring Boot, do I need to convert Java to JSON, JSON to Java? Do I need to convert Java to JSON, JSON to Java? Not required. That will be taken care by Spring Boot. Good. Anybody having any questions on this method? Anybody
Hello,
having any questions on this method?
hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in the place of request body, sir, can we use response and request param?
Request param to take single value. Request body to take all the values.
Okay, sir, but we can use.
Yeah, we can use it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Guys, these classes are very important. Without having the knowledge on REST API, you cannot develop microservices. Okay, so I'm teaching very slowly. Today I explain how to create one simple REST application and how to take JSON data as an input for the REST controller by using post request method. Tomorrow I will explain about get request method, how to send JSON data to the client, how to send all the records, all the users to the UI, how to send one user to the client. Tomorrow we'll talk more about get request method, put request method and delete request methods in the REST API. I want you people to practice how to develop first REST API and how to test the REST API using Postman. This is my binding class. There is a post request method available. For this post request method, how to send the body. This is our request body data. You need to send this JSON data in the request body. Then REST controller method will take the data from the body, will convert that JSON data to our Java object. Clear? Good. So with this, I'm stopping for today. We'll continue tomorrow. I want you to practice this REST API. Thank you, guys.